Chapter 12 Twist the Knife July 1979 I just don't understand what the issue is, Raphael says, crossing his arms and glaring at James. It takes an enormous amount of willpower not to cuss him out. They've been having this fight for a week now, and James has had it. He shoves the wallet in his pocket, then grabs his sunglasses before turning to face his boyfriend. The sullen look on Raphael's face makes a twinge of guilt spark inside of James, but he ignores it. He'll make it up to Raphael later. It's family only, he says firmly for what feels like umpteenth time. Raphael rolls his eyes. Remus is going. He's not family. Don't let my mother hear you say that, James warns him petulantly. Honestly, Raphael is pushing it. How dare he compare himself to Remus? The audacity of this man. Remus has been coming round to my house every Christmas since we were 12. He's known Reg for years. I'm sorry, Rafa, but it's not the same. As far as James is concerned, that should be enough. They've talked about it so many freaking times. Rafa is not invited, it's family only, end of discussion. Or so he hoped. Unfortunately, Rafa has decided to be difficult about this. Yeah, well, the thing is, I feel like all of these reasons are excuses you are making up. I feel like you don't want me there, and I can't, for the life of me, figure out why, Rafa says. He follows James out of his room and into the hallway. If they don't wrap this up soon, James will be late. And he really doesn't want to be late. Sirius was surprised that I wasn't coming. It got me thinking. Oh, Godric's sword! James is going to murder Sirius for his meddling. He really needs to stop trying to make his relationship with Raphael into more than it is. Honestly, he's far more invested in it than James himself, which, as far as James knows, isn't how these things are meant to work. When did you talk to Sirius? He asks. It comes out too harsh, snappy. He isn't proud of himself for that one, but what is he supposed to do? Why is Rafa making such a big fucking deal out of this? This morning, before he left, I ran into him. Rafa leans against the door, a clear sign he wants some answer before James leaves. It's irritating. What's going on, James? Good question. James can't exactly explain to his boyfriend that he's panicking because the last time he saw his not brother, he had to watch him stick his tongue down someone else's throat. And fuck! James was an ass about it, a true brat. He sent him a card. Regulus turned 18, and James sent him a card with a bad punchline. He is despicable, a petty, jealous trash fire of a human. It's very important to James that he makes up for his mishap today, and for a reason he's not willing to examine too closely, it means he does not want Rafa at the party. He needs to see Regulus alone. Talk to him and evaluate how much of a mess he's made so he can fix it. Besides, on top of the guilt, James is also low-key terrified. He isn't sure what he will do if Regulus treats him differently today, if the situation is worse than he expects. The last thing he needs is for Rafa to be there demanding attention. Hey, Rafa says again, reaching for James's arm. He lets Rafa tuck him closer. Talk to me. What's the big deal? James wraps a hand over his face. Rafa is gorgeous. He's tall and fit and has a perfect square jaw that James does enjoy nibbling at. His mouth is full and shapely, and Rafa knows how to use it. His eyes are dark and piercing. 2 identical colored eyes framed by long lashes. It's wrong. So deeply, disturbingly wrong that James has to look away. I just know Reg prefers to keep things intimate. He's not a fan of crowds or large events. And you don't know him or his friends, so there's really no point in dragging it there. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I've got to say, I don't love this, James, Rafa tells him, letting out a sigh that blows out his cheeks. We've been dating for months now. I would have thought a family party like this was the sort of thing you would bring me along to. You came to my cousin's birthday, my titi's divorce party, and you were invited to my mother cousin's wedding in August. Reg isn't. I just... James looks away, takes a step back. Look, I'm sorry, but this is Rex's party and he doesn't love strangers. Rafa throws his hands up in frustration. The only reason I'm stranger to him is because you act so fucking cagey about him. He's your brother. What's with all the secrecy? Don't, James snaps. He's not my brother. I'm late, Rafa. I'll see you tomorrow. James yanks the door open and gestures that Rafa should leave. The tension is so thick he can taste it. It's cutting like drinking acid. There's a storm brewing here. James knows next time he sees Rafa they will have a fight. It's written all over his face. Grinding his jaw, Rafa takes out his wand and steps past the threshold where the words will allow him to operate. A muscle ticks on his cheeks when he says, "Have fun at your nut brother's party then." Regulus looks like he would rather be anywhere else. He seems so miserable that it stops James in his tracks when he arrives. Behind him, the paneled glass door swings shut, and a gust of air ruffles his hair. Apprehension tugs at his chest, so he takes a moment to survey the small crowd before stepping into the garden. A white marquee houses a table full of food, a bar with a young wizard serving drinks, and a charmed record player for music. White lights float under the gazebo like stars, illuminating the space as the evening sun lowers. It is, by all accounts, a cozy gathering. Regulus sits on a chair in the corner. He's clutching a glass of some clear drink, could be water, and nervously rubbing his chest every other minute. It's a new tic. James noticed it during Christmas once or twice, but he thought it would go away when Regulus finished school. He's always been a bit too panicky about exams. Except all of that is out of the way and he's scheduled to tryouts for the Magpies in little over a week. So why does he still looks like he's already crumbling under pressure? Before James has time to second-guess himself, he walks around the garden to avoid being spotted and comes up behind Regulus. "Hey," he says, a hand hovering by Regulus's shoulder. There was a time when he wouldn't have hesitated. What he wouldn't give to have that easy confidence back, to return to the days when he knew he could touch Regulus and it would be okay. Normal. Congratulations on finishing your nudes. Regulus whirls around so fast he has to blink before his eyes focus. James. Hi. The blood drains from Regulus's face, which, considering how pale he is by default, is worrisome. It throws into sharp contrast to the purple bruises under his eyes. Godric, James knows he only finished exam a week ago, but most people have recovered by now. How hard did Regulus push himself? Thanks for coming, Regulus says after a moment. What? Of course I came, James replies, a little offended. Why wouldn't I? Regulus shrugs and downs the clear liquid in his glass. He glances around and it takes James a moment to realize he's looking for someone. But who? You're busy. Maybe you had other plans. When did their conversation become so stilted? It seems it was only yesterday that Regulus was reading to him for hours, their legs tangled on the sofa. They built a snowman together, but would be appalled at the frostiness of this interaction. James hates it with everything he has. If I'd had other plans, I would have cancelled them. He hopes his irritation is clear in his voice. Regulus is overreacting, isn't he? This feels a little unfair. It's not as though James has ever missed an important milestone in Regulus's life. He might have sent a shitty card for his birthday, but he still acknowledged it. I remember, the card said, even if I'm being a dick about it. There's nowhere I would rather be, Reg. The words land. Regulus's eyes widen a smidge and he nods. Some of the ice thaws. He sighs, then gives the empty glass a half-hearted little shake. Refill? Smiling, James takes his hand out and, to his delight, Regulus takes it. A breath hitches in James's chest at the touch. He does his level best to hide it, to act like feeling the softness of Regulus's finger under his own calloused hand isn't making his knees weak. He's so fucking glad he told Rafa not to come. From there, things become a little easier. They get a drink, then Effie and Monty make a speech to tell everyone how proud they are of Regulus. He blushes and makes a big deal of being embarrassed, but he's smiling. Sirius cries, and Remus tells him off for being a drama queen. It's Regulus's party, Remus says. Don't make it about yourself. Regulus doesn't seem to mind though. He makes fun of Sirius with Barty and Evan, who keep bringing up some joke about swinging from a chandelier. At one point, Sirius even hugs Regulus, and he allows it. James almost swoons. He can't help it. He has a soft spot for the Black brothers. Pandora and Lily comes a bit late. Lily is a healer in training, and her courses run until the evenings. The moment the girls descend on him, all giggles and spilling juicy gossip from the healer's world, Regulus absconds with them to the food table. It's their first time he leaves James's side since James found him moping alone on that chair. It's been a brilliant party. James couldn't have asked for better. He sips his beer and watches the people he loves. It's nice when it's like this. One big, happy family. Barty and Evan fiddle with the record player, trying to change the music. Monty talks to Remus, who went in search of a drink but was intercepted on his way back. Next to James, Sirius nurses his drink like he's pondering something. James knows Sirius well enough to wait though. If he pushes, Sirius won't say whatever it is he's mulling over. Perhaps he wants to move in with Remus, but doesn't know how to tell James it's time he gets his own place. This is what he braces himself for, but what comes out of Sirius's mouth is entirely unexpected. Where's Rafa? Huh? Rafa? Why does Sirius care? James blinks a few times, startled. Why didn't he come? There's a dangerous undertone of offense in Sirius's question that clarifies a few things for James. This is tricky. He can't let Sirius think Rafa didn't want to come back. I told him it was family only. What? As those summoned, Dorca and Marlene walk past, talking animatedly to Effie. James rolls his eyes. Marlene will never not to try to flirt with his mother. It's disturbing. You know Reg doesn't like strangers, he says defensively. I thought it was best if Rafa didn't come. Too many people overwhelm him. Too many people? Was Rafa going to show up with his entire family? Sirius frowns, staring at James in a way that makes ants crawl under his skin. He shrugs. It's fine. Rafa was busy anyway. Fortunately, Sirius lets it go. Still, James feels a little off about the exchange. He's not a liar. Quite the opposite, actually. He's always prided himself in his honesty. And yet, these days, he's been making shit up left, right, and center. He knows that Rafa and Reg will have to meet. Well, meet properly, not the catastrophe that was James's birthday. They will have to spend time around each other. It's going to happen, and James is going to have to witness it. Frankly, James would rather cuddle a hippogriff. James, Pandora says, spawning from nowhere right in front of him. Glitter sparkles on her eyelids. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Yeah, sure." Pandora leads him towards the corner, far enough that they can't be overheard. James's gut churns. He doesn't think he's ever had a private conversation with her before. "Is everything all right?" "No, it's not," Pandora says brightly. "Can I help?" "Maybe. Do you want to?" James blinks, confused. "Sure. What can I help with?" Before Pandora can reply, Regulus joins them. He looks flustered, like he just ran a lap around a Quidditch pitch. To James's shock, Regulus braces a hand on his shoulder while he catches his breath. It sounds a little tiny. There's a whistling sound that reminds James of Gideon's asthma attack. Alarmed, he leans into Regulus. "Hey, are you all right?" "Yes," Regulus says, quickly straightening. "Sorry, Pen, Bertie was looking for you." "Regulus," she starts, but he shakes his hand. "He said it was important." With a sigh, Pandora leaves them alone. Suddenly, James is painfully aware of the hand on his arm, the rings glinting in the sparkly lights dancing overhead, the delicate bones of Regulus' knuckles. They are standing so close, and nobody is watching, and what if I dared? Wildly, James imagines stepping closer, taking Rex's face in his hands, and what did she want? The moment is broken. Regulus takes a step back, his hands at his sides. James blinks. "Huh? Pandora, what did she want?" "I'm not sure," James says, dismissive. There are more important things in his mind now. "Reg, are you... I don't know how to ask you this. You know I'm not great with words, but I..." Regulus's eyes go wide. A blush creeps up his cheeks. "Yes?" He turns his face up a little. And oh, if James was braver. If things were different, if Regulus wasn't all the things he is, James would lean in. But he's not, and Regulus is waiting, so James puts his fantasies aside and makes himself ask. "You don't sound like you are doing very good," he tries, grimacing at his clumsy wording. Are you sick?" Immediately, he gets the feeling that it was the wrong thing to say. He has no idea why, but it is. Regulus steps back, shaking his head. "Nah, I'm just sleep-deprived, catching up, but all good. Anyway, party's wrapping up. Wait, I'm gonna head upstairs. I'll see you for tryout. Thanks for coming." Regulus turns on his heel and marches towards the house. It feels oddly like he's running away. Regulus sits on his bed with a small pocket in front of him. He's not yet come around to the fact that his time at Hogwarts is over for good. That he won't go back after the summer ends. In fact, the concept of summer break is no longer relevant. His life will become a cycle of Quidditch seasons, of practices and game days and occasional press conferences. If he makes the team, that is. James and Sirius seem confident, but Regulus has his doubts. Ever since his realization on his birthday, he's been fidgety around James. What if his body takes it up a notch and decides to start spewing petals in front of James, not just because of him? So far, that hasn't happened. But that doesn't mean Regulus wants to risk it. Especially because his breathing hasn't returned to normal, his fevers hasn't subsided, and none of the others' worrying symptoms have stopped. He's managed to sequester himself in his room for a few days under the pretense of resting up and recovering from his exams. He did help Monty clean up the garden the other day, but when his fever got to be too much, he claimed heat exhaustion and ran inside. A cold shower helped to cool his skin, though he still stumbled out of the bathroom and right into bed. Last night, Sirius, Remus, and James came around for dinner, so he had to put on his big boy pants and pretend he's pitchy. Pretend he wasn't terrified of opening his mouth to find a petal drifting from his tongue to the plate of risotto Effie made. He got through it fine, though, with an unexpected turn of events. The package he's been staring at for a solid hour. It feels much bigger than it is. Maybe because James had beckoned him into the hallway after dinner and handed it to him with a rushed, "Here, this is for you. I meant to give it to you at a party the other night, but you ran off and..." Regulus, confused, had held it slightly away from his body. "What's this?" "A present." "A present." James huffed, and Regulus noticed a blush creeping up his neck. "Yes, Reg, a present. You know, that thing people usually give you when it's your birthday." "It's not my birthday anymore. Besides," Regulus said, fighting to keep any inflection out of his voice, "you already gave me the card. Why this?" James rubbed at the back of his neck, blush spreading to his cheeks. "I didn't want to just send this to you. I've been holding on to it, waiting until you came home. The card was placeholder." Regulus blinked, a little flabbergasted. "You've sent me presents to Hogwarts before." "No, I know, but I didn't want to this time." If Regulus didn't know better, he might have said James was a little flustered. "I don't understand." "I missed the post-cut-off time, okay?" James rubbed his hands up his face, pushing his glasses. "Got busy and, well, you know." Regulus didn't know, but the package had suddenly felt much heavier in his hands. "Anyway, don't open it now. Ma will want to know what it is, and it will be a whole affair, and Sirius will be pissed he's been one-upped, and just later, yeah?" How could Regulus resist the quiet pleading in James's eyes? He nodded, said, "All right. I will go put it upstairs." And James seemed all right with that. They didn't really talk the rest of the evening, content to sit on opposite sides of the table with Sirius, Remus, Effie, and Monty around them. There was plenty to catch on all sides, and Regulus found himself distracted enough to forget about the package sitting upstairs on his bed. Until now, at least. With tentative hands, Regulus pulls at the carefully tied ribbon. It falls off the box. Then there's nothing but expertly folded paper. He tugs gently enough to keep it from ripping. "James got me a gift." He plucks tape from a corner. "James got me a gift. James got me a gift." There is a small part of him that wonders if James's earlier words were a lie. "I missed the post-cut-off time." It's like James to be forgetful, but he's never once messed it up for Regulus's birthday. Not in the years since Regulus has been a member of the Potter's house. Even before that, he was always the first to shout "Happy Birthday" across the Great Hall, which often led to a whole slew of people repeating the praise. James would beam at him from across the hall when Regulus glared for the antics. He tugs at another corner, and the paper finally falls from the box. Regulus doesn't know what it is. It's another box, though this one is much nicer and not wrapped. It's a sleek material, all black. In the bottom left corner is the Magpie's logo and shiny white print. Confused, Regulus tugs at the lid of the box. "Regulus, I know you won't be able to wear this yet, but since you won't be expected to play any games until at least early October, I thought it would be something you can use for motivation. Tryouts will be a formality, but practices are pretty grueling for starting members. I don't want you to lose your love for Quidditch just because the coaches can be dicks." sometimes, and do not tell them I said that. Anyway, I hope you like it. James. X. Regulus reads the note several times. It holds a cadence the impersonal card didn't. That care he has come to associate with James. A small grin tugs at the corner of his mouth when he sees the multiple underlines under "do not tell," as if he would ever tell anyone James's secret. There is a tissue paper folded around fabric, and Regulus really realizes a bit belatedly that his heart is beating much too fast in his chest. Still, he moves the paper gently out of the way and scoops out what sits tucked underneath it. A cashmere scarf, long and of similar width as his old slithering one. It still hung on the back of his door. He can't part with it quite yet. But holding this, he might never wear the slithering scarf again. This one is all black, with 3 white gold posts at the ends. The Montreux Magpie's logo sits inside the highest of the tree. The fabric is incredibly soft, and just because he's alone, he brings it to his cheek. He's not sure he's ever owned anything this soft. Cashmere is expensive, usually not easy to find since it's a muggle fabric magic can't replicate. It isn't until he looks at it over a second time that he finds a detail he's missed. His name, printed in small but detailed lettering over the magpie's logo on both sides of the scarf. R. Black. Not his brother's name, not James's name, his name. Right there on what he knows is an official magpie scarf, only available to players on the team. Regulus runs his finger over his name once, twice, a third time. He doesn't know what string James pulled to manage this. Regulus has an unofficial offer downstairs on the kitchen table. Monty is looking it over with Sirius and James's help, making sure the salary checks out, the practice hours and day off, the holidays break. Nothing has been signed. Regulus hasn't even completed tryout. Yet James still managed to get him his very own scarf for the Quidditch team of his dreams. Regulus's first mad impulse is to go searching for him, throw himself in his arms and thank him until his voice is hoarse and they are No. James doesn't feel that way. James has he who must not be named to do those things with, which Regulus will have to learn to live with it, he supposes. James deserves better than his petty jealousy. It's obvious James cares about him. It's just not in the way Regulus wishes he did. It happens before he can process it. He's light-headed, hot all over, with a tingle in his fingertips and toes. He shivers, though he's far from cold. The scratch in his throat doesn't bother with subtlety. It becomes a tear the moment he realizes it's there. And before he knows it, his cheeks are wet with tears. His lungs are on fire, his bones feel wrong, and he tumbles out of bed right onto the floor with a strangled grunt. There are flowers everywhere. They cover the floor around him, and this feels worse than vomiting. It's not even a cough anymore, it's just pain. So much pain as his lungs constrict, his entire chest seizing as he expels more petals, some full flowers, a whole mix of it all right there around them. He realizes too late that he's been sobbing, that he's been choking on petals and flowers and blood. There's a smattering of blood on the floor, some of it on a few of the petals. Fuck! Regulus shakes on all fours, his head still muddled. With panic, with absolute terror, he doesn't think he's coughed up blood before. Plenty of petals, the 2 flowers, but blood? The door is unlocked. His wand is too far. He's been too loud. Effie always knocks before entering one of their rooms. She joked once that it's because she doesn't want to see anything untoward, though she knows they are a teenage boy and it's bound to happen someday. It never did, though. Effie always knocked, waited, and only entered when they opened the door for her. So Regulus doesn't expect her to burst into his room, panic written all over her face. What in Merlin's name is going on? Regulus, are you all right? She's across the room, about to kneel beside him, on all the petals and flowers he spewed. No, he shouts frantic. He holds out a hand and prays she understand it means do not kneel, do not destroy them. I'm fine, he crows, straightening. He rests his hands on his thighs and heaves an unsteady, rattling breath. Just a bad spell, that's all. Messed it up. Effie gives him a flat look. Your wand is clear across the room. Wandless magic. What spell then? What? Effie puts her hand on her hips and stares down at him with the mother's look, as James calls it. The sword that says, I know you're lying, but keep right on going. What spells were you trying to do? Regulus is still lightheaded. His throat still tickles. Less pain than before, but still something. And Effie is watching him. He can't escape. So it's with defeat, with a certain acceptance that he won't be able to hide this anymore, that he coughs, a violent thing ripped deep from his chest, and watches petals spew out onto the floor. Oh, Merlin, oh my! Effie maneuvers around the petals and full flowers surrounding Regulus, pushing them gently away. She makes a small noise when she touches a few with flecks of blood. Regulus, I need you to explain to me what's going on. Right now, in detail. I don't know, he says earnestly. It's the honest truth. I have no idea what's happening to me. This isn't the first time? Effie settles beside him and wraps an arm around his shoulders, pulling him in. It's the first time in a long time that Regulus allows himself to be held close. Talk to me, Regulus, please. Regulus isn't lightheaded anymore. He thinks he might have coughed up the last of them. It started in August. In August? Last August? Yes, shortly before school started. Effie is silent for a moment. You were sick often during winter break. Was it happening then too? It was. It happened all of the time, just not this often, not this bad. You mean it's been getting worse? Much. Regulus reaches for one of the petals and holds it between his fingers. This one is a soft violet. They are an array of colors now, most in varying shades of purple, a macabre assortment of monochrome all around him. It was manageable for a while, but after James's birthday, it's been difficult. I get fevers a lot. I have so many petals in my jars and... Jars? What jars? Effie holds him slightly away to look down at him. Regulus, what jars? Reluctantly, he turns to reach under his bed. He gathers the jars one by one, placing them in front of him, and Effie admits the puddle of petals. These jars. Effie gapes. You've been collecting them? I can't get rid of them. It feels like they're part of me. I can't explain it, but anytime one of them is damaged or destroyed, I feel it, like a little piece of myself is lost with the petal. Regulus reaches for the newest jar and unscrews the lid. He begins to gather the new petals and place them inside overtop the others. I had to destroy the ones I caught up at James's party. I didn't want anyone to see them and I had no way to save them. It was awful. To his surprise, Effie begins to gently help him collect and place the petals in his jar. When it reaches the top, she pulls out her wand and creates a new one. Without a word about it, she helps him fill the last one too. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell me? Regulus worries his bottom lip between his teeth. His mouth tastes metallic. I hoped it would go away. It only got really bad in April, but by then I had newts and Quidditch and I didn't want to get pulled out of the school and not be able to finish. It's a miracle you managed to finish any of it. It hasn't been easy. Quidditch is hard. I'm not breathing right. I'm not performing the way I usually do. I noticed it during the Hufflepuff game. James told me you sprinted across the field. I did, but I missed the snitch. If I'd been at the top of my game, I would have got it. I know I would have got it. Regulus screwed the lids on the fifth jar as Effie continues to pile petals and full flowers into the sixth. It's already filled halfway. I take Pepper Up potion. They helped. Effie regards him out of the corner of her eye. You can't rely on them. It will mask the symptoms and you'll be even worse before you know it. I know, but I just need to get through tryouts. I'll make the team, and then I don't have to worry about the game until October. Just practice. You are sick, Regulus. We need to take you to St. Mungo's. No, Regulus says a little too forcefully. When Effie narrows her eyes, he tries a second time. No, please. Tryouts are in a few days. I can do this. I just need to get through them and then I promise I'll go to St. Mungo's with you. I don't want to be sick forever either. I just need to do this. Please, Effie. I don't like it, she murmurs, screwing the lid on the sixth jar. It's almost full. I'd feel better if you... Please. Regulus is all but begging now, panic clawing up his throat. Let me just finish tryouts. I'll make the team. I know I can do this. James and Sirius believe in me too. Once my spot is secure, I'll go to St. Mungo's. Right from tryouts if you want. Please, Effie. Let me do this last thing. Effie's frown deepens. She seems anxious, searching his eyes relentlessly, but after a moment she replies. Right from tryouts. Do you promise? Yes, I promise. And you'll have to be the one to tell Sirius and James. She holds up a hand to placate him. After tryouts is fine with me, but you will have to tell them. You can't hide this from your brother. And James will be just as worried. I'm going to tell Monty if that's all right. Regulus wraps his hand on his chins. His palms are a little clammy. It's all right so long as he doesn't tell James. He realizes his mistake too late. Adds quickly. Or Sirius. But Effie's brows are clear to her hairline. Miraculously, she doesn't push. Instead, she gets to her feet and helps Regulus to his. After tryouts. But Regulus, if this gets any worse between now and then, we're going straight to St. Mungo's. You are coughing up blood. That's not a good sign. I know. Then, are we in agreement? Regulus nods once. We are. With a sigh, Effie tucks him forward and wraps her arms around him. I know you are not like Sirius. You don't want people to worry about you or fuss over you. You are happy to do it all on your own. But you are under mine and Monty's care, even though you are of age. Just as Sirius and James will always be under our care. That's what it is to be a part of this family, blood or not. Do you understand? I understand. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. It's all right. We'll do whatever we can to get you better, no matter what it takes. Regulus is going to be sick, and for once it has nothing to do with flowers. Pure nerves, raw and twitchy, slither inside his gut. He stands at the gate that leads from the players' changing rooms onto the pitch of the training grounds for the Magpies, his hands gripping the door jamb hard enough his knuckles ache. A girl named Leanne Ross flies across the training grounds. She's doing the chemistry test with the team, the last part of her tryout. She's gunning for a better position, which open up because the Magpies are losing one of theirs to the Pride of Portree. Even though she's not in direct competition with Regulus, he feels bitter bile coat the back of his throat as he watches her fly. She's good. Too good. A drop of sweat runs down Regulus's spine. Merlin, please do not let me mess this up. Behind Regulus, people warm up and fret over their brooms as they wait for their turn. There are two other people trying out for Seeker, though neither of them has seen any paperwork. According to Sirius, the Magpies need a reserve, so that's what the other two are really competing for. The headlining position is his. It does nothing to his Regulus' nerves. His body is keenly aware of how much he wants this. It's a desperate, all-consuming need. Securing a spot on this team is his one goal. Regulus's entire future hinges on this last performance, and the enormity of this is a boulder sitting on his shoulder. How did Atlas ever suffer the weight of the world? It's threatening to crush Regulus where he stands. A tension headache had begun to build in his skull, but he pushes it away. Just a little longer and he'll be on his way to St. Mungo's to get treatment for whatever it is that's ailing him. Please, please, please. Leanne lands in the middle of the pitch, windswept and smiling. The Magpies give her the thumb up and warm expressions before flying away to wait for the next aspiring player. Regulus is almost certain she's getting the spot. Oh, Salazar. He's definitely going to be sick. His legs are rooted to the spot, even though it's his turn now. A few seconds and the coach will be calling his name. His fingers twitch around the handle of his broom. In his chest, the whistling gets that much louder. Calm down, he tells himself. Calm down right now. Panic and anxiety makes his condition worse. This much he knows. He's pretty certain it's all somehow related to James. But whether it's because James usually generates alarming fluctuation in his emotions or some other reason, Regulus hasn't yet figured out. Whatever the root cause of it is, one fact remains. The more nervous he is, the harder to breathe it becomes. He suspects a fever is about to spike too. Without meaning to, he scans the pitch until he finds him. In his Magpie's uniform, James looks like a wet dream. Regulus isn't surprised that the Magpies' viewership has increased twofold since last season. There's an army of James Potter fangirls swooning over his perfect Regulus Black. Oh no, it's time. He forces himself to walk out of the changing rooms and onto the grass. His feet feel wooden, but he slowly covers the distance of the assistant coach. The wind changes and Regulus' nose fills with the sweet smell of polished brooms and leather kit. It's grounding, and the electric feeling inside his stomach quiets to a dull hum. Quidditch is his passion, his one true love. I can do this. Mr. Black, the assistant says, smiling. Today's session is mostly about chemistry with the rest of the team. We've also heard from our scout that you can perform a perfect Vronsky feint. As you know, our outgoing seeker struggled with feints, so it would be great if you could do one for us. The coach is in the air. I'll be on the ground. Since you are a seeker, the chemistry test is less relevant. but do try to fly around with the team for a bit. Just have some fun. Regulus nods. His t-shirt is stuck on his back, damp with sweat under his jersey. His hands ache from gripping the broom handle too tightly, and he's sure he can taste dust from how much he's ground his teeth. But the moment his foot hits the grass and the broom soars, he sighs in relief. Sirius shoots him a small smile and a subtle nod. Everyone knows they are brothers, but it won't do to make a big deal of it. Regulus wants to earn his spot on his skill, not on favoritism. Next to Sirius, James winks at Regulus and mouths, "You've got this." Regulus turns his broom away to hide his smile. A sharp pang in his chest reminds him that he really shouldn't let this go on for any longer than it needs to. His body isn't at 100% and he can forget that. Taking as deep breath as he can given the asthma-like symptoms he's developed, Regulus signals to the team that he's ready, and his tryout begins. He spends the first part of the test flying around the pitch with the magpies. It's easy. It feels natural. A few members shout jokes at him, and he finds himself bantering back. His voice breaks a little, but he hopes the others assume it's the wind, and not his inability to take full breaths. After 10 minutes with no major difficulties, Regulus finds that his shoulder is away from his ears and his knuckles relax. He really does have this. The moment his nerves fade, though, his body's aches spike. Too late, Regulus realizes that his panic about performing was keeping the physical symptoms at bay. But not anymore. A small gasp leaves his lip, and he has to swallow back the nausea that makes spit pool in his mouth. The tension headache has now mounted to a relentless throbbing behind his eyes. His skin is tight and hot. The fever he knew was coming was finally surged. He knows his cheeks are violently red, and it's not a blush. Blinking to dispel the blurriness in his eyes, he makes a decision. Considering the preliminary offer, he's almost sure he doesn't need to drag this out. He just needs to show them he can do what they want him to do. Chemistry with the others wasn't all that important, but the feint is. He just needs to do one dive, and he can land. With a shaky hand, he gestured to the magpies that he is going to break from formation. They understand, clearing the way so he can do his flashy maneuver without worrying about crashing into anyone. Most of the players head towards where the coach hovers near the stands. Sirius goes with them, but James hesitates. His eyebrows are close together, but Regulus doesn't have time to puzzle over it. The longer he takes, the worse he's going to feel. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Regulus knows that he shouldn't risk a Wronski feint if he's not in top form. But there are two other seekers in the changing rooms, waiting their turn. If Regulus can do this, he'll lose his spot. His dream is at stake. He's so close. He can't give up now. Higher up, the air is thinner. Regulus sucks it in, struggling to get enough oxygen into his body. He feels dizzy, so he decides it's enough. On a good day, he could have kept going, made the drop longer, more impressive. Today, this will have to do. If he cuts it very close to the ground before pulling up, the hay won't matter so much. Everyone will be impressed. 1 whizzing breath. 2. 3. Regulus' head spins as he angles his broom downwards. He swallows air, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of the water. His chest hurts. Sweat beads on his brow. A little longer. Hold a little longer. Just one feint. Please, don't let me fail. He's shaking. Black spots break out in his field of vision. Regulus tries. He tries with everything he has to fight back against his own body. But it doesn't listen. It has no mercy. A coughing fit starts. This high up, it's too hard to fight for air in between spouts. His brain feels too big for his skull. Black seeps across his vision, narrowing it until he feels as though he's looking down a tunnel. Petals fall from his lips, and Regulus has a moment to panic about everyone else seeing them just before darkness swallows him whole. Something is wrong. James doesn't know how he knows. He just does. It feels like a thread tugging his attention back and up. Look at him, it says. And James has never been particularly good at impulse control where Regulus is concerned. So he slows down on his broom and turns. Regulus is gaining height for his feint. All is going according to plan. A few more minutes and his spot on the team will be official. James should really just go join the others and watch from a distance like everyone else. But he can shake the gnawing foreboding that eats at him. Behind him, Sirius gloats to someone that his brother is about to perform the best Vronsky he's ever seen. No one has any doubts. The scouts have been singing his praises for months. And everyone is excited for the younger black brother to join their team. They've hopes of winning the league this season, in no small part thanks to the legendary speed of their new seeker. He truly is one of the best. What's happening? No. James's heart lurches, and before he has time to think, he's flying up towards where Regulus seems to be convulsing on his broom. Is this a coughing fit? Sirius told James that Regulus is still fighting some sort of cough, but he never thought it would be this serious, that it would... Something falls from Regulus's hand, distracting James from his thoughts. Is this a feather? He can't see it clearly. He squints trying to figure it out, but there are more. Small, light things flutter towards the ground like a grotesque crane. The ground. The very, very far away ground. Oh God, Rick. Fear is an iron claw around James's heart as he speeds upwards. He has to get to Regulus. He has to... There's nothing quite so terrifying as watching the person you love plummet towards certain death, particularly when you know there's little you can do about it. But James has never known how to give up, when to stop, how to accept defeat. This is no different. It's an impossible dive. He's a chaser, not a seeker. His broom is made for agility, not speed. They are too high up and Regulus is free-falling. Despite the odds, James goes after him. He can't hear anything, not the shouts of the team, not the frantic rush of the assistant on the ground calling for a healer, for help, anything, anyone. The only sound in James's ears is his own blood, rushing with adrenaline as he tilts his broom into a perfectly vertical line. As he races toward Regulus's frail, unconscious body, he understands two things. First, that he will catch Regulus before he hits the ground. Second, that they won't make it back up in time. There's no avoiding a crash. It's inevitable. It's a choice, but not really. Not for James. Not when it comes to Regulus. James doesn't think, doesn't hesitate, doesn't entertain any other option. He cannot bear the thought of a world without Regulus in it, and so he doesn't. Death is coming for him, and James is ready to stand between them. With one hand, James tells his broom to break the fall, swoop up and slow them down enough that they've got a chance at surviving the crash. With the other, James reaches for Regulus. His fingers close around Regulus's jersey. James pulls. His broom splinters from the effort of slowing down, of trying to fall back up with two bodies at the momentum of vertical drop pushing against it. James's shoulder groans, popping out of its sockets with the dead weight of an unconscious body. His broom snaps in half, but they've slowed down just enough for James to have hope. There's a chance they will make it, and that's all he needs. He closes his arms around Regulus, cradles him against his chest so he's as cushioned as possible, and twists. The last thought James has before his back slams into the ground and blinding pain erupts is, "Please, don't let him be hurt."